This is She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. Your host, Kinsey Roberts, interviews incredible women in the wedding industry who are making their mark and creating success on their terms. Join the conversation.
Hey there, welcome to episode 173 of She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. This is your host, as always, marketing coach and venue owner, Kinsey Roberts. Thank you so much for joining me today. You're going to be blown away by today's episode. I am so thankful that I get to finally welcome Christy Osborne from Mountainside Media to the podcast. After almost 4 years of doing this, she's finally on my show, and I could not be more thrilled to have her. You're going to love her. I'm sure she is not a stranger to you at all. Her and I could talk about marketing and data all day long. Luckily, we didn't, you guys. We're just under an hour, so it's an amazing episode. Let me tell you more about Christy in just a second, but before I get to that, I really need to send a heartfelt shout out and thank you so much to SourcedCo over at sourcedco.com. Sourced is the place that I get stock photo and video footage for wedding professionals. I've been a very happy customer of them for probably over a year now. I've actually been trying to figure that out. But I felt so grateful and humbled when they decided to come on and be a sponsor of this show. That means they support this podcast. They support you and I as women entrepreneurs in the wedding industry. And I sincerely appreciate that. The business is run by 4 incredible women. They are all wedding professionals themselves. So they really understand what we need, you guys, when it comes to stock photos, when it comes to video clips and video footage. We cannot always have professional photos ourselves. I know I can't. I know that I have a couple of businesses in the wedding industry, and I don't have time to make sure I get my own photos all the time or brand photo shoots. And SourcedCo has really come through for me. Last week's episode, I shared on Instagram stories how I use their photos in both She Creates Business and VistaView events and the new company that I will be sure to share with you guys as soon as it comes out, but I'm not ready to do that yet. SourcedCo.com. I'd love for you, head over there, grab a monthly subscription. You will not regret it. You can get 15% off every month for 3 months using the code SheCreatesBiz. That's all capital letters. She Creates, B as in boy, I-Z. She Creates Biz. That's good for 15% off every month for 3 months of your subscription, and or it's good for 15% off any purchase in their shop. They have those amazing acrylic styling blocks for photographers. So grab a subscription, grab some acrylic styling blocks, and SourcedCo, thank you so much for supporting this podcast, supporting us as women entrepreneurs in the wedding industry. My appreciation for you knows no bounds. Let me tell you guys about Christy Osborne. She's the owner of Mountainside Media, a company that helps event industry professionals and brands develop scalable marketing strategies that bring in more inquiries and leads. Christy is a national educator with recent speaking engagements at NACE Experience, WIPA, and TISO. Christy regularly shares industry insight in her Cater Source column, as well as on specialevents.com, Wed Altered, Wedding IQ, and NACE's industry blog. She is a marketing powerhouse. I do not say that lightly. We're going to talk today about how you can stand out from your competitors, how you can move ahead of your competitors using quantitative data, and what exactly to do with that data when it comes to part of your marketing strategy. Here we go. Christy Osborne from Mountainside Media. Let's do this. Christy, I'm so happy to finally say this. Welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. I've been following you a long time, Kinsey Roberts, a long time.
Likewise, that is the 100% truth. And I thought to myself, well, and I gushed to you on offline, so I'll try not to do it online here because people are going to vomit. But I've been waiting a long time to tell Christy Osborne, welcome to the She Creates Business podcast. So we're going to have a lot of fun today. And you guys, Christy and I both said offline, we're just going to nerd out and be weird. So I hope you're excited about this. I do not like math until it comes to analytics for our business because I feel like it's one of the easiest ways to determine where to market your business. I talk a lot about marketing as math, and so I know Christy has a lot to share with us today. Before we get to all of the goodies, though, I gave everyone that professional bio at the top of the show, as I always do. But Christy, I would love for you just take a few minutes in your own words to tell us who you are and what you do in the wedding industry.
Yeah, I'm Christy Osborne. I do ads in analytics and strategy, but mostly ads and analytics. And what I basically do for clients is I figure out what needs to be measured and improved so they can make more money.
Yes, please. What needs to be measured and improved so you can make more money? Write that down. I don't know who needs to hear that, but someone does. I constantly have to remind myself of that. I feel like it is an evolving process and our businesses change. As we record this, it is 2020. And so, of course, we're still going through the coronavirus crisis. This is one of the biggest changes a lot of our businesses have seen. But do you feel that way? I feel like it is in a great way. It's not just a static, hey, do this one time and you're good to go. It is something that is constantly evolving, which is why I imagine you think it's so important to make sure that you're quantifying this data on a regular basis, right?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And the thing is about that is the reason why I say what to measure and improve is because you know this, because I've listened to your interviews and podcasts and having you talk about marketing and analytics and how instrumental looking at your numbers has been to helping you grow your business. And also, I'm assuming, navigate a huge crisis like coronavirus.
100%.
But you have to know kind of what to measure because you get into Google Analytics, and I believe there's like 178 like default reports right out of the box. And so if you don't ask yourself first and foremost, what do I want to measure and improve in order to make more money, right? What do I want to measure and improve to make more money? You get in there and you're overwhelmed. And then you look at some numbers that seem to make you feel good and you pat yourself on your back. You head back to doing whatever you're going to do. And that's not ultimately going to help you make more money, scale your business, or do whatever you want to do within your business.
That's right. Yeah, I absolutely. You're 100% right. I just like everybody else in this year, as we record this episode in 2020, I'm not, my wedding venue is not just an automated cash funnel to my bank account, no matter what happens. You know what I mean?
What?
I'm not.
You didn't make 7 figures in 7 minutes? Come on now.
I know. Come on. Gosh darn it. I certainly didn't. I haven't made 7 figures in 4 years. Let's be real. Not personally anyway. I have not. Let me rephrase. I have not net profited 7 figures. But this year, just like everybody else, we had to cut some stuff because it was just the prudent and smart thing to do. And had I not known where to look at my numbers and my analytics and my data, I wouldn't have known what to cut out that could still help us be profitable going into our next season, 2021, 2022. Because like I said, we're not over here rolling in $1 million. It's not like we're like, YOLO, we don't care what's happening right now. And I had to figure out, okay, what can we cut right now just to be prudent, just to be smart. And like you said, it's helpful if you can know exactly where to go. Otherwise, I would have been pulling out my eyebrows.
Yeah. I assume, like me, you also have, not to like get in the weeds or scare people off. I do not want people to just like press pause and swipe out of this podcast.
Don't do that, guys.
But, part of it is for me, I did the same thing, evaluating my cash flow, looking at what I should and couldn't cut and things like that. And that's analytics as well, whether you're in QuickBooks or a spreadsheet or wherever, the magic is thinking about what you need to measure, setting up some sort of system or dashboard for measuring it. And then when, things get tough and you're being pinched, then you can look at that dashboard. And one thing that Michelle Loretta from Sage Wedding Pros taught me, I hired her a little while back to look at my cash flow. And I know that this is about analytics, but I want to tell this story just because analytics is about how you think about data, not about how you do data. And so my second year of business, like I was already making 5 figures right out of the gate. And then that was a month. And then, that was that. I was making good money. And in February, my second year, I didn't have enough money to pay my bills. And I was like, why do I feel like I'm making all this money, but I don't have enough money to pay my bills? So I just sat down. I'm a spreadsheet girl like you. I just sat down and pulled up a tab that said expenses, made another tab that said income, and made a third tab that rolled things up because I like to do formulas in Excel. And I knew that I kind of was being funky about it, and it wasn't QuickBooks, and I wasn't an accountant, but I just needed to get a handle on my cash flow every single month. And my business stabilized and started to grow. Well, fast forward a year later, I hire Michelle Loretta, and she has a very different spreadsheet that she uses for her clients. She's an accountant. She knows how to do it right, blah, 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 blah. And I was really embarrassed to show her this thing that I made up just to answer the question, is my business healthy this month? And she looked at it and she shrugged and she was like, yeah, this is fine. It doesn't matter if you are doing things the whole right way. If you're setting up some sort of dashboard or spreadsheet or system or ledger tally in a journal with a pen, and it's answering the question that you need to answer to keep your business healthy and have it grow, you're fine.
I like that you said that because I think it can feel overwhelming. I even still feel overwhelmed sometimes because I'm not always doing the right thing when it comes to my data, and I'm, hands up, I can freely admit that. But I like that you said that, Michelle Loretta, you guys, and she's been on the show. I'll put her episode link in the show notes. I like that you said that even Michelle Loretta, who has all the experience that she has, can come in and say, no, this is totally fine. Like, this is great. It's the same thing. It may look different than mine, but if it's providing you the information that you need on the back end. And I think that that's a really important note. And it may not feel important, but it is, because it does not have to be some sort of crazy accounting or numbers system. It can be a free Google spreadsheet where you can just input your formulas like Christy and I do. That's free. Yeah. And I think sometimes we think once we have, right, all of those systems or those softwares, once we have those, then we'll be legit. Then we'll know what our numbers are. Then we'll be able to put together our quantitative data. And I feel like it's actually not further from the truth. It's not the system or the software that's going to change your behavior. You just have to actually get in there and do it. I see a lot of people, we spend a lot of time setting up to scale a business that does not exist yet, when we just need to jump in. Like, you just need to open up a spreadsheet today and start doing some of the things that Christy recommends. You don't need a special software to therefore then be able to do this math and data.
You can even do it on pen and paper. It's funny.
Yes,
I just
please.
did a full audit with and I do a little bit of a hybrid. I do what I want. But you can do a lot of things. I do what I want. You do a lot of things with pen on paper. It just depends on where you're at. And you could literally write down in your day planner at the beginning of the month.
Yes.
Here's how much money I anticipate to come in. Here's how much money I anticipate going out. Just subtract one from the other. And then at the end of the month, look at how much money actually came in, how much money actually came out, and see where you were off. And if you were off egregiously, negatively, figure out how to fix it. You just don't. It's the thing about where I'm mission driven is I sure know a lot of tricks and geekery, but it's really unnecessary to start with all of the tricks and geekery.
Yes.
Right? You
Yes.
just have to start with a good question, start figuring out how you're going to answer it in a way that works for you. So if you're a pen and paper person, great. If you're a spreadsheet person, great. If you want to do everything in a Word document, and I've met those people, fine.
Great. Yeah. Whatever
Do what
works
you
for
want.
you. Do what you want. Okay. Now that we have told everyone they can literally do whatever they want, no matter whatever feels good to you. Yeah. Do what you want when it comes to actually navigating these numbers. Let's actually talk about what they need to do. Let's break it down and go and start at the beginning. Because from what I've heard from my listeners and what I understand, I don't think a lot of people use their quantitative data when it comes to marketing and how to really understand making more money using that data. So let's start at the beginning, Christy. Let's say that we're talking to someone who's somewhere between, 2 to 4 years in business, and they're doing well, and they, like you, they have they're making decent money, like they're making money, but they have not taken the time to do this, and they actually need to take a step back, right? Slow down to speed up, and they need to get started managing this data. Where are they going to start?
Well, I suggest that you start with your website and your Google Analytics.
Okay.
Because that's where people are going to find the most down funnel information in order to do business with you.
Explain really quickly. Sorry to interrupt. Explain really quickly what you mean by down funnel information.
Yeah. So down funnel means that they're aware of your business. They've done some research. They feel good about doing business with you. And now they want to take the next step in order to start that booking and sales process. So they want to fill out your inquiry form, or they want to, call you, or they want to, oftentimes they're DMing you as well. And also, your website should have enough information for them to make a booking decision. So even if you're getting, because I hear this from people all the time, well, I'm just on Instagram because, people just DM me now. Yes. And if you had a website with all of the things that people need to understand and know about in order to feel comfortable doing business with you, a lot of those inquiries, even if it's through Instagram DM, would be a lot easier. So your website should be not just a hub of information, but it should also be an opportunity for people to reach out to you and do business with you. For most of us in the event industry, that is some sort of inquiry form.
Mm-hmm.
That's the if you don't measure anything, like I really don't care as much how much Pinterest traffic you're getting, how much other social media traffic you're getting, how much traffic you're getting, before I understand how well your website can convert website visitors into inquiries, because that's where you make money.
That's right. How much your website can convert website visitors into inquiries. Write that down. Okay. All right. Thanks for explaining the down funnel. So we're starting with Google Analytics because that's where we can get the most down funnel information on our website. Tell us more.
Yes. So, when it comes to Google Analytics, you have to do a little bit of a little setting up in Google Analytics. You have to create a goal. Now, here's where I like to, especially in our industry, because we're creatives, right? Most of us are creatives. And so if you get too much into the weeds about like all these quote unquote funneling goals, like mid funnel goals, down funnel, and you set up a whole bunch of goals in Google Analytics, and Google Analytics will let you do what you want. And sometimes that can be to your detriment. So for example, just backing up, I'll go into a client. I had one client, I went into her Google Analytics. She was so excited to just play around with Google Analytics, and she had like all 20 goals set up. Google Analytics will only let you set up to 20 goals. So you want to be really choosy about what kind of goals you set up that are going to answer particular questions for you. The number one question you should be asking your business is, how do I make more money? How do I make more money? So as you're setting up goals in Google Analytics will say, Kinsey, do you want to measure time on site? And you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds good. And Google will say, hey, Kinsey, do you want to measure page views? And you're like, oh yeah, that sounds good. I'll set that goal up too. Hey, Kinsey, do you want to measure like video views? Yeah, I'll set that up. So you set up all these goals. And what happens is you get so much data coming in that you don't really know how to handle it or parse it. You still don't know how your website's making you money.
Yes.
So for most event professionals, I say just to start, all you need to do is set up what's called a destination goal in Google Analytics. And this is a thank you page. This thank you page is what people are redirected to when they fill out your inquiry form. It's not a pop-up saying, thanks, we've received your response. Don't do that. Set up a thank you page, because you can track how many people hit that thank you page in Google Analytics. Give it a funky name. Don't tell Google spiders not to index it in Google search. And also, the great thing about a thank you page in terms of that client care is you can set expectations for the inquiry call, tell them how to prepare. You can put a video of yourself talking to them saying, hey, I can't wait. Here's what to expect. You can get them to really connect to you and anticipate that call, because guess what? They've also inquired with like 3, 4, or 5 other people. So that thank you page can help set you apart. But in Google Analytics, it tells you got an inquiry. And the reason why this is important is because you can start cross-referencing reports once you have that destination page goal set up. And you can start to see things like what cities drive the most conversions, what social media channels drive the most conversions. Things like that are really important, because then you can start to reverse engineer your sales and marketing funnel and mix and say, hey, I'm noticing that Pinterest drives a lot of traffic, but it doesn't drive any conversions. What drives conversions is Instagram. And so when you're just looking at the traffic report, it seems like it's a smart idea to put advertising dollars into Pinterest because you get a lot of traffic. But if you set up that goal, that destination goal in Google Analytics, you can see that the channel that drives the most inquiries is Instagram, but it doesn't drive a lot of traffic. So then you can understand that you need more traffic from Instagram, and advertising might be a great way to get that.
Yes.
So set up your destination goal in Google Analytics.
Christy, tell people why, you mentioned this a few minutes ago, but tell people why it's important to, on this thank you page, I believe you said to set it up so that it's not indexed by Google. Tell people why that's important.
Yeah. So you don't want people to like search for your name and find your thank you page and just click on it arbitrarily to see what's in it, because that will skew your data. So you want to make sure that that thing is hidden. I screw up people's data all the time because I will literally go into somebody's website and type in their URL and hit /thank-you and see what's in there. And so many people have that set up as their URL. So oftentimes when I have a landing page set up for a thank you, it will be thank you dash and then some gobbledygook or some identifier like, summer 2020 that identifies when I set it up or whatever. It doesn't matter, but you just want to make sure that it's harder to find. So people aren't just clicking on it by accident and skewing your data.
And so, go ahead.
One more thing I want to say about goals as well. And this is my particular take on what a goal should be for a small business. So you'll go to a lot of conferences, you'll listen to a lot of podcasts, you'll hear a lot of experts talking about goals and key performance indicators, which are KPIs. And sometimes people's goals are like building audience. I have a goal to reach 100,000 followers on Instagram, or I have a goal to do this, I have a goal to do that. And it's my belief that your goal for your business should always be a bottom line goal. It should always be a revenue goal. And everything else tells you how well you are doing at meeting that goal. So unless you can answer when you're like, I want to grow my traffic, I want to grow my social media audience, unless you can figure out how that ladders up to you making money, it's not a goal, it's a milestone.
Come on. It is not a goal. It is a milestone. And you explained this perfectly when you were talking about the reason for setting up a thank you page where you're tracking conversion. And we've talked about this on the show before, is who cares if you are getting 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 page views a month from Pinterest if none of those people convert into paying clients? Who cares if you have 100,000 Instagram followers if none of those 100,000 Instagram followers, and here's the great news, you guys, or here's surprise, most of those are probably other vendors anyway, but if they're not converting into paying clients, and even if you're converting 0.5% of your Instagram followers, what are you going to do with 1,000 clients? Nothing. Like, that's enough business for the next 10 years. So I think it's so important to, like what Christy is saying, when you have a bottom line revenue goal, and you said this, Christy, and it's so simple, but I hear it so differently when you say things in a great way. When you have a bottom line revenue goal, then you can reverse engineer where you should be putting your time, attention, and advertising dollars to bring more clients into your business. Even if you get less traffic from Instagram, if it converts at a higher percentage, and then you even prop it up with advertising dollars, well, now you just have kind of the law of the few, right? You just bring more traffic to your website that converts better for you. And that's how you actually increase amount of clients. It's not by trying to go out and get more traffic from someplace that's not converting. It's you get more traffic from someplace that is converting, and you're pumping up your booking numbers because you're bringing the right traffic.
Yes. Preach.
Gosh. I basically I just wanted to like reaffirm everything that you were saying.
Yeah.
Okay, the podcast is over, you guys. Christy just helped all of us.
Manageable. It's
Just kidding.
manageable and easy to handle when you just have that one thing you're looking at, and then you're seeing how everything else ladders up to it. One thing I just want to say in your podcast, it's a little bit technical, but I think it's important to state because I see a lot of people making this mistake when they set up a goal in Google Analytics. So I'm going to talk through it. Take notes. I take notes on podcasts all the time.
Same.
Take notes. When you go into Google Analytics, you're going to click on the little settings wheel to go into admin. You're going to go all the way over to your view, your master view, and you're going to click set up a goal from there.
Mm-hmm.
Google's going to give you a lot of options to set up a goal. You're going to choose either destination or if you want custom and then destination. And you're going to put the URL that is your thank you page in the field that prompts you to do so. Here is the most important part. Choose begins with the URL, not exact match URL. And I've learned so many things the hard way. I learned this the hard way. What happens is when you start getting into sort of advanced tracking and analytics and you're using URL strings like Google's URL string to track campaigns, when that URL appends into that query with your source and medium and campaign, if you have set up your goal in Google Analytics to exact match, none of that will be tracked. So you always have to set up that URL as begins with, and then anything that gets appended, it will track. The other problem that happens, even if you're not doing campaign tracking through, URLs, is that if you're sending out any kind of email or if people are, forwarding your content from one person to another, sometimes Google can't read all of that, and those URLs will come in as appended as well, and none of that will be tracked. So it's really important when you're setting up the goal to put begins with, not exact match, in order to be able to do campaign tracking and not lose a lot of data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I just want to break this down. When you are going into Google Analytics to set up this goal to track conversions or submissions, whatever you want to call it, to whatever helps you understand, guys, to track conversions / submissions on your inquiry form, you're actually tracking the thank you page. You're not tracking the URL of the inquiry form. You're tracking the URL of the thank you page because that
Correct.
means that the person has taken an action, and the action is to submit an inquiry with you. You're going to say it one more time, Christy. You're going to destination, and then Google will ask you. This is specifically Google will ask you. You don't have to find this, guys. It'll ask you what URL you're going to track, and you're going to select the begins with, and then that's where you put in the exact URL of your thank you page, but you're not selecting this exact URL and then putting in the URL because, as Christy mentioned, it appends a bunch of different data, and appends just means it's going to add in some other data points like numbers, letters, all of that. I mean, just to keep it real simple, it just adds some extra information onto the URL, and you don't want to track that. So it begins with the actual URL of your data page, or your thank you page. So whatever happens after that, whatever gets added after that to the URL, doesn't impact your stats.
Right. And it's not Google Analytics that's appending. It's other sources on the internet or you that append. Sometimes you append to track your links. You do campaign tracking, and other times other platforms just abuse your links and they come in all funky. There's a lot of internet abuse toward links going on out there.
Stop abusing our links.
Stop abusing our links.
That's right. I'm getting us t-shirts. Okay, so that's the first step, is to track this thank you page. Now, question for you. Do you recommend, as we're first getting started, or maybe we're a little bit, we're not novice, but we're not advanced, or do you recommend setting up any other goals for people kind of just getting started with this other than the thank you page on their website?
I don't set up a lot of goals, if any, aside from the thank you page for service-based creative clients. If you're getting into e-commerce, yeah, you can set up funnels and goals and stuff like that. But I feel like just the thank you page goal is sufficient, because what you can do is you can customize your own dashboards in Google Analytics and set up custom dashboards and custom reports and things like that, where you can start slicing and dicing the data yourself, right? So you can look at how many landing page views you've had, and then how that rolls up to how many conversions you've had. One of the other reasons why I only like setting a thank you page as a goal is that you can assign a value to it, and which is what I like to do. And here's how you do it. So if you've been in business for 3 or 4 years, you have a general understanding of what your close rate is. So that means, for every person that inquires, you close a certain number. So let's say you have a 50%, for easy numbers, 50% close rate. If you get 10 inquiries, you can anticipate booking 5 people. And say your average sale or your average booking rate across all of those people is $10,000. Well, if you get 5 people to book, you've just made $50,000. What you can do is you can go back into Google Analytics and say, basically for every person that inquires and has the potential to spend $10,000, for every person I'll book 50, or for every set of inquiries, I'll book 50% of those. If every person who books spends $10,000, 10,000 divided by 50 is $5,000. So what you can do is, understanding that, you can put in $5,000 as your goal value. What this does when you just have that bottom dollar goal in your Google Analytics for professionals and creatives, especially to start, is that your Google Analytics will start to tell you how much money it anticipates you making in any given month, any given quarter, any given year. And you can use that in 2 ways. One, you can use that to start planning out how much you're going to spend on your marketing mix, whether that's outsourcing to social media or paying for advertising or whatever. But it will tell you how you're pacing monetarily and how your marketing efforts roll up to actual income. If you start putting in a whole bunch of goals and start saying, well, my visit to lead, is this, and my lead to inquiry is this, and my sales to inquiry is this, and you're setting all that up in Google Analytics, it can get a little messy for most small businesses and creatives. So, if you have other things to do with your time, like, I don't know, run a venue, then I just recommend setting up the one goal, assigning a value to it based on your close rate, and just using that to monitor the rest of your marketing mix.
Christy, that is so manageable. You're so smart. I would just really quickly, can you explain to everybody why you took $10,000? So $10,000 is the average price of this person's service, but then you divided it by 50. Can you tell them why that you did that?
Yeah, because if your close rate is 50%, that means for every one person, you're going to book a half a person, which doesn't make sense in the real world. So then it means for every 2 people, you're going to book 1 person.
Yes. Okay.
So basically, you just want to divide the number of people who come through your door by the number of people you actually book.
Yes. And then that gives you that number that Christy mentioned that you plug into Google, so that it can start helping you average out, potential income and all of that. But anyway, yep, I just wanted to touch on that really quick so we know how you got that number 50.
Right. And okay. I try not to be too mathy when I talk or speak, because it just it turns people off. So trying to distill things down to here's the most important thing you need. You need a goal. The most important piece of math you need to do is, your close rate, and put that in as a value for your goal. And then that's it. We're done with the math. We're done with the tech.
Yes, we're done. And that's, you guys, yeah, we're all done. I know we've been talking for a few minutes, but that's it. This is all you have to do in order to get all of this information on the back end that Christy's talking about. You have a thank you page. You set up a goal in Google. You put in your close rate into Google, boom, and you have all the information that Christy's talking about. What is that? 4 steps? Did I say 3 or 4 steps? I mean, easy. That is how easy Christy makes this stuff. Okay. So we've set up our thank you page. We have set up our goal. We have also put in a revenue goal because we have determined what our close rate is. Very easy. Close rate is just a fancy way of saying how many people inquire with you versus how many actually pay you as a client. What is the next thing we can do to start really taking advantage of our quantitative data?
Okay, so this is the next thing, and this has come up so much in my life, like this week. You want to set up some baseline metrics, and the baseline metrics are how are you pacing? So you set up your Google Analytics with your goal, and then you let the data come in. You let it just cook for a month. Just let it cook. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to analyze anything. You're just going to let this data come in. And the reason why you do that is because your numbers at the start matter more than any kind of industry baseline or industry benchmark. And I get people all the time. I just got 2 friends voxing me saying, hey, what should my email open rates be? And that's fine, right? Or what should my traffic be? To leave it to, like what should my traffic be? And I'm like, well, that's kind of a fine question, but you don't know until you know what you're already doing, right? So, and you want the easy answer. You want me to say your traffic should be $2,500 or $2,500, 2,500 sessions, 2,500 people visit your website in any given month if you live in a suburban area and you're a venue, right? It sounds so good to have somebody tell you that. But that doesn't matter in terms of looking at your own analytics, because your own analytics are going to prompt you to take some action. And irrespective of how much traffic you're getting compared to the benchmark, you're not going to know how to take action and how to, and at what level to get more traffic unless you know what your baseline metrics are. You're not going to know how to set reasonable goals for inquiries unless you know how many inquiries you're already getting through your website. So it's really important when you just set up your basic goal to just let that information cook for a month. And then you can you can write down on a spreadsheet or a piece of paper, here's how much traffic I'm getting. Here's how many conversions I'm getting. Here's how much traffic I'm getting to social. Here's how many are converting from social. Here's how much traffic I'm getting from styled shoots and blog post placements. And here's how they're converting. And then once you have those numbers, then you can ask yourself things like, how can I get lift? How can I go from 10 inquiries to 12 inquiries next month, or 10 inquiries to 5 inquiries next month? So it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing with their website or how much everybody else is getting in inquiries. That's just a recipe to cause you stress. You want to see where you're at, get all that down on paper or a spreadsheet, and then start asking yourself, how do you improve your business? Not how you compare to all your competition. That just causes stress.
I feel like you just released a lot of anxiety and just gave a lot of people freedom in saying that. Once you have this information, you are only competing with yourself to improve your numbers, year over year or quarter over quarter. Everybody becomes irrelevant because the only numbers you need to know are your own.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Now that's also not to say, I do want to just address the traffic issue as well. That's not to say that you don't have a traffic problem.
Sure.
Sometimes if I see traffic for vendors that are in a metropolitan area or a suburban area with populations of, 50 or 100,000, in the market, and they're only getting like 200 or 400 people to their website a month, and half of them are from Russia, like obviously we have a traffic problem. But even still, I'm not looking at their competitors' Google Analytics because I don't have access to them. Right. I'm still just looking at the client's analytics and saying, you're only getting 400 sessions. if you convert at 1%, on your website, or 0.5%, that's 2 inquiries a month. If you're not getting those inquiries, we still have a traffic problem, right? So it's not to say that you don't have a traffic problem. All of this is to say is that you need to start with your metrics, and your metrics, when you're looking at your metrics, you are not making any decisions until you have a good baseline. And a good baseline, you can start with a good baseline for your website after about a month, and you write down all your numbers after about a month. And then for certain campaigns, depending on the campaign, it could be 1 month, it could be a quarter. If you're advertising on the Knot and Wedding Wire, your baseline could be an entire year before you get good insights. But you're always just looking at your stuff and asking, how can I improve things in order to increase my bottom line?
Yeah. So really quick question for you, Christy. In our industry that there are certain times of the year where our traffic, hopefully, right? This is the idea, where our traffic or our sessions will spike, right? We have like engagement season, we have booking season, and then naturally things typically go down during actual wedding season because people are not getting engaged. They're attending weddings, they're getting married, they're busy in the summer. Their lifestyle has sort of changed. But as we're going to release this episode, we're going to get closer and closer to engagement season, which for the majority of people listening happens somewhere between November and February each year. Is there any information you have to offer if they start to implement these things on their website, implementing these goals around the time of what is typically a huge spike in traffic? Can you kind of just offer some advice about what they're going to see when they implement things closer to like a spike in traffic versus, so like my question is, do you think they should wait maybe a little like 60 days to see their baseline? Because will their baseline be skewed at all? Can you kind of offer us some advice on that?
Oh, that's such a good question. I feel like you've talked a little bit about this in previous podcasts because you are really good at looking at your year over year numbers, which is so key. So, Google Analytics allows you to compare either month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year, whatever. And it used to be before COVID that every like March and April, I would get this slew of inquiries on my own website with vendors reaching out and they're like, we're going out of business. We need to market better. And I'm like, wow, you're going out of business. That sounds terrible. What's your year over year comparisons? And they're like, what? And I was like, well, how are you pacing year over year? What last March's inquiries look like? And they'd be like, I don't know, let me look. And this is like on a strategy call. So I'd wait, they'd pull up some numbers and then they'd be like, oh, we're up. I'm like, well, good.
Hooray.
You have more money to hire me then.
Exactly.
All joking aside, yeah, I mean, you can still set up that 30-day baseline and look year over year. For your first year, the bummer about setting up goals in Google Analytics is they only start tracking those goals the day you set it up and forward, right? So if you set up goals today, you're not going to have any conversion metrics for last year. But you can kind of like noodle around and make it work for you. Again, it's not about the metrics. It's about the questions that you ask and the ability of numbers and information to answer those questions. So if it were me, what I would do is I would go back and look at all of your inquiries from last year. And I'd ask myself, if it were me, I'd go and look at all my inquiries from that last year. And I would ask myself, how many of these inquiries each month do I think came from my website? And say I think, half of the inquiries are coming from my website. Then when I set up my goals this year, I can see, based on that assumption, how I might be pacing. And here's the dirty secret about analytics and data. You have to make some assumptions sometimes. We are not in anybody else's head. We can't, because of privacy issues and ethics, follow everybody's exact move around the internet, even though we can follow a lot. And so a lot of analysis and data interpretation starts with a set of assumptions or certain models. And those are really good at giving you enough information to take action. You're not going at Google Analytics like it's your psychic and it's going to tell you everything that you need to know and know in certain terms. You're just looking for enough reasonably good information to take action and then to look again to see if that action made you money.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And at the beginning you mentioned that it's okay if you just need to use a piece of paper and a pen. And if you are just setting up Google Analytics and you're setting up these goals and these methods for the first time, of course you won't, like as Christy mentioned, you won't have that year over year data, but you can easily go back and start to track some stuff. Even if it's just on a simple spreadsheet, like inputting those numbers that Christy mentioned, and so that you have that year over year sort of hypothesis to get started on, which is better than what some of us have right now, which is nothing.
Yes,
Yeah.
which is nothing.
Yeah. Okay, so once we have kind of completed this next step, is there anything else? We have our baseline. Once we've ran it for at least 30 days, we can kind of get some of those baseline numbers pulled out. What do we do with those baseline numbers? How do we, I guess, what do we do with those baseline numbers? How do we start to make them a number that we care about, I guess?
Yes. So you make them a number that you care about by asking the questions that you want to have answered before you start tracking your baseline metrics. Mm-hmm. So here's how to think about that. Your marketing mix is an entire system of interrelated parts, right? It's not, your marketing is a system. It's not just a scattering of random moves. This system operates to roll up into getting you web traffic and inquiries and sales, right? So when you're thinking about a system of interrelated parts, like your digestive system or an ecosystem, right? Like you can't just like focus on your stomach to the exclusion of your esophagus and colon and think you're going to live very long, right? You have to really think about how everything works together in this system in order to produce a result. So the way to think about this in terms of marketing is that the parts of the system are not as important as the relationship between those parts.
Say that one more time.
The parts of the system are not as important as the relationship between those parts. So if you think about this in your marketing, Instagram is not as important as the relationship between Instagram and whatever happens on Instagram that leads to sales. So when you're thinking about optimizing your marketing mix, rather than looking at platforms alone, look at platforms and the relationship between those. And here's how to do it. You want to ask yourself, you have your goals set up, so you know what the end result is, sales, inquiries and sales. You want to ask yourself, given where people are, on what platform, where people are, what is the next logical step they can take to either deepen the relationship with your brand or to help make a booking decision? And if you can look at every single platform through that lens, you can see clearly the relationship between that platform and everything else that needs to happen in your marketing mix to lead to inquiries and sales.
Okay, so I love the way you simplified that. When you're working with someone, do you recommend that they focus first? I mean, we all have a lot of platforms. I think sometimes we get started on everything and we should be focusing on maybe just a few, especially those that are bringing us traffic and converting. But I'm imagining I know what you're going to say, but just tell me how you coach your clients. Which relationship, or what's my question? Where should they be focusing first? Like, should they get this baseline data, understand where their most conversions are coming from, and then focus on that relationship first? So the relationship between Instagram and how they're getting clients with there. So then they know they need to focus marketing efforts on Instagram. Is that kind of what you would advise? Okay.
And here's the way to measure a deep relationship or um, a booking decision on any platform. It boils down to two behaviors: engagement and clicks. Okay, so let's look at Instagram. You post something, or you have a content strategy where you're going to post throughout the month every other day, right? And you are going to create content. You're going to decide that that content is either going to deepen the relationship or lead to a booking decision. Okay. When you are producing content that deepens a relationship, you are trying to get some level of engagement, and that's what you're going to track. So that could be DMs, it could be shares, it could be clicks, it could be comments. And when you set up a spreadsheet or draw a picture or create your Word document or put something in a graph for Instagram, when you measure likes and comments and stuff like that, you're measuring it because it is deepening the relationship between your client, the potential clients, and your brands. And the trick is to understand when you're producing content to deepen a relationship and when you're producing content to make a booking decision. So now let's talk about the booking decision. Not everything, especially on social media, needs to be book now, book now, book now. Helping to make a booking decision, there's all sorts of content that can help with that. Content about you and your systems, or you and your process. Content about what it's like to work with you. Content about your pricing. Content about frequently asked questions. And yes, information about how to book. So when you are on a social media channel and you say, a big question that I get from clients as a venue is, are we going to be the only event is our event going to be the only event of the day? Mm-hmm. That FAQ is not just deepening the relationship with you. It's content that they need to evaluate in order to make a booking decision. So you answer that question on an Instagram stories or an Instagram post, and then you say you want to drive some sort of action. So you say either DM me if you're interested, which is a click, or link in bio, which is a click. And what you're measuring there, because you're giving them content that helps them make a booking decision, is you're measuring that click. And then you rinse and repeat. Once they click and go to your website and look at your FAQ, what's the next logical step they would take to either deepen the relationship with me or make a booking decision? And there can be an engagement metric. You can set up scroll depth, which is a little bit more advanced, but you can set up a scroll depth for that page to see how far they read down in Google Tag Manager. And then you can have a call to action to have them click on your products and pricing page or your services page, and then you're measuring that click. And what you want to do in your system is you want to just set up places where you measure to evaluate that deepening of relationship, i.e. engagement, and driving a booking decision, i.e. clicks, from the time they see something on social media all the way down to the time that they fill out that inquiry page. And what you're looking for once you have all of those things set up, you're just looking for fall offs and gaps within that system. And that's where you decide to optimize.
I'm just nodding my head. Do you guys see how, I love this so much. This is why marketing is math. Do you see how Christy went from the very tippy top of the funnel, which was, let's answer a question that helps people that helps people make a booking decision. And the question is my wedding the only one you're going to host at the venue? Is my wedding the only one you're going to plan or photograph or do calligraphy for on the day of my wedding? And she created this entire funnel for you right down to the click of inquiring with you. That is how, so my heart of course loves this, my marketing heart, because that's how you decide what sort of content to create for your clients that leads to booking decisions. You don't just have to, and this is good news. You don't just have to fly off the handle and create random content or post random pictures like happy Friday or Friday introductions. I mean, do that if you want to deepen, of course, the personal relationship that people have with you. But you can create content that is actually helpful. And then, which of course is something that we talk a lot about on the podcast. But then you get into Christy's world where you're bringing people all the way down to inquiring with you, which gives purpose and meaning to everything that you are doing and actually makes your marketing and data tracking so easy, in my opinion. Like, this just feels so right to me. There's no questions. There's no, you know what I mean? Like, there's no questions. Like, what should I post today? When you do what Christy is saying, that question is in the trash. You don't have to ask yourself because you already know what to do.
Yes. Yeah. You're constantly creating content and measuring. I mean, you have to have something to measure, right? So you have to create something to measure before you can measure it. So creating content and measuring content going hand in glove. But if you focus your entire editorial calendar, no matter what platform you're on, social, blog, email marketing, whatever you're doing, on content that either deepens the relationship with that both deepens the relationship with you and your brand and helps make a booking decision, you'll have a really good, healthy marketing mix. And I 100% agree with you. I get advertised all the time, and sometimes I'll buy it just to see what kind of junk is out there. And there's a lot of junk out there where it's like, your viral Instagram posts on social media, and those tend to be really great products for deepening the relationship. But if you don't have in your marketing mix some way to help people take the next logical step toward booking you, and P.S., they're not going to see a post on Instagram and just get exposure to you for the first time and lose their minds and go book you, right? Yes. Like, there is a whole process of planning or of becoming aware of your brand, of evaluating your brand, and there's different levels of evaluation as well, and then making that booking decision. So when I say making a booking decision or driving a booking decision, I'm not talking about book now, book now, book now. What I'm talking about is, if they're aware of your brand and they like you, how can you get them to evaluate you? Because that's the next logical step in the booking journey. Once they're evaluating you, how can you get them to fill out your inquiry form? Because that's the next logical step. You know what I mean? But you're not saying like, oh, they're aware of me and they saw some quote graphic on Instagram. How do I drive an inquiry from that? You will never.
Never.
Ever.
Never. Give us some I love this. Give us some examples, just one or two is fine, of what it means, what it looks like for a client to be evaluating us. What does that mean?
So I have noticed two levels of evaluation for clients in the event industry. The first is based on the fact that they don't know what they're doing. Yes. So they're asking the question, what do I do?
Yeah.
And the way that you answer that question as a service-based industry or as a locally service-based industry like a venue is you answer that question in a way that says, in my neck of the woods, here's how we do. So let's say, for example, you have a client who doesn't know what to do about a venue. Like, what is their biggest question when it comes to like being clueless about a venue? What's the first answer they need when it comes to finding the right venue for them, Kinsey?
The first answer our clients ask, well, there's two first questions. The first one is my date available? So they always have some sort of date that they have in mind, and they have a general idea of the amount of people that they want to come. So are you big enough, and is my date available?
Right. Okay. So basically what I would do to answer that question in the evaluative standpoint is I would take the date issue. Now, a lot of vendors think like, I need to just tell them if I'm available. But if you step back from you, because that's in the research phase, not the what do I do phase. But if you take a step back from you and yourself, and you look at date availability from your location, right? Mm-hmm. And you write content around the busiest, fastest booked time periods for, I can't remember where you are in Colorado, Kinsey.
Western Colorado. So I'm near Glenwood Springs and Aspen.
Okay. So basically you would write some content. It could be a blog post. It could be a social media series. It could be stories. And you would say, a typical question that I get asked is my date available? And I'm going to answer that by telling you what the most popular times to get wed in Aspen are. And I'm also going to tell you, if you're looking at those dates, you better book your venue more farther in advance than usual. And so what you're doing in that evaluation phase is you are just answering the general questions that they have about their wedding. Why is this important? Because nobody else is answering them. It's also important for you to do it location-based because that signals to people that you are serving a certain location. This is especially important for blogging because I've seen a lot of people drive a lot of traffic from all over the United States because they have this killer informational blog post that has nothing to do with the actual local market that would be booking them. So they're just polluting their traffic, right? They're just polluting their website with people who aren't book for them.
Yeah.
So
And they're like messing with their data because it's never going to result in a conversion.
Yeah, because it skews your ratio and stuff like that. So that's the first stage of evaluation. And in that stage, you're just answering general questions, contextualizing it for your location and area, and you're building authority. So you're really deepening the relationship. Now you can always drive, you can ask the people who are ready to make a booking decision by saying, at the end of that post or at the end of that social media content, check out my availability, right? So you're setting up like, here's what it looks like for people getting married in this area. And if you're ready to take the next logical step in the booking process, you can check out my availability. And now you have both things to measure, engagement and, clicks. Yeah. The second stage of evaluation is when they're evaluating you.
Ooh, yes.
In particular. Like they've decided they want to get married in Aspen and you are on their short list of like 5 or 7 venues or whatever. So now they're going to be evaluating you. This is where your reviews become really important, having content on social media and on your website about your process, what it's like to work with you, how other people have experienced working with you, which is your testimonials. And again, in that content mix, you're still asking yourself, how can I measure a deepening of the relationship and that next logical step in making a booking decision? And you are setting up your milestones in order to measure those two things each step of the way.
Okay. And these milestones are what we can track in analytics because we've set up like clicks, that sort of thing.
Yes. And you can also track them on your social media analytics as well. And so when you're setting up your spreadsheet or you're setting up whatever you want to set up that makes sense to measure you, if you're out on social media, your Google Analytics only tell you about your website. But if you know that you are really good at deepening the relationship on social media, but you're falling short in actually like driving clicks and traffic according to the next logical step in the booking journey, then you can start focusing your efforts on trying to move people from one phase of the booking journey to another because you have the engagement down. Don't worry about that. Now you need to start moving people along the booking process, right? So being able to think about any kind of analytics or any kind of marketing, because we fling around these terms all the time, like funnel and KPIs, which is your milestones, and marketing mix, and it makes your head hurt. But if you are just thinking about the humans behind all of that and the actions they take from going from being aware of you to booking you, and you just map it out for yourself and your business and make some decisions about how you're going to measure according to deepening the relationship and taking the next logical step in booking, you will have everything you need to grow your business and make more money.
I feel like this is an amazing place to end this podcast in the last hour. I mean, I have my own to-do list I always feel like I'm doing the right thing until I listen to Christy. Or I'm doing enough. But I even have my own to-do list after this episode, and I feel like this is an amazing place to end. But before we wrap up, Christy, is there any little last piece of advice or tip that you want to offer to people as they get started on this journey of quantitative data to lead to making more money in their business? This has been so helpful.
Yeah, I think the biggest tip I have for anybody at any time when it comes to marketing measurement and analytics is you don't have to do all the things all at once. The only requirement you have to have from start to finish is to stay curious and keep your eyes open.
Yes, stay curious and keep your eyes open. Christy Osborne from Mountainside Media, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to She Creates Business. Please take a minute and head to iTunes to leave an honest review so we can help more wedding pros find the show.